been living in Chicago my entire life, 34 years. I actually did not want to become the police growing up, but I think I engaged with the police on various occasions that played a role in me becoming the police at a later time. For example, I was roughed up by a police officer as a young kid, just hanging on the corner with friends. I started going to CAPS meetings as a young teenager to voice my concern to the police about some of the issues in our community. And when I was in college, there was a recession, so I had to choose a career where I can actually pay back a lot of the loans and things. Plus, I thought law enforcement would be a great opportunity for me to improve the community. So I ended up getting involved in law enforcement and going from there. So I've been an officer for 10 years.
As an officer now, how would you say safety and crime in the city is, and maybe compare it to how it's been, when you first started out?
So I think crime has definitely gotten worse since I've been an officer. We're starting to see an intake in more violent crimes. Even our response to some of those crimes have changed. Policies have changed. It's become a little bit more concerning, even for myself, even though I'm an officer. When I go out if I may get invited to things, I have to choose accordingly how and when I'm going to go because of what may be in that area. So as far as like Chicago, I would say crime has definitely gotten worse. However, it's based off certain blocks. So this block may be totally fine, but this block, 2 blocks over, may be completely dangerous. So yeah, it's definitely due to it's been an increase in crime. My personal opinion, I think it's a variety of things. I think it's people failing to prosecute and the offenders continuing on with whatever spree that they're doing, committing crimes. Education plays a role as well. If a person is not getting a proper education in their local schools or their schools being closed, that affects a person's ability to be, productive, and they're more likely to commit or get involved in criminal activity. So I think there should be resources placed in certain communities throughout this city that can actually deter or guide our young in a direction that they should go to make them be more productive.
Yeah. So Kim Foxx has caught a lot of flack for dropping a lot of cases, just refusing to prosecute them. Some of them that people are really upset about is murder accusations, sex crimes, attacks on police officers, people being accused of shooting other people. How do you think Kim Foxx has done as the DA, and what do you think of her policies?
I really didn't feel the effects of Kim Foxx policies until it started affecting me personally. So without saying too much, I know someone that was the victim of a murder, and the detectives were able to get substantial evidence in order to present to the state's attorney in order to prosecute the case. However, the case was rejected for what I feel would be minor or minimal reasons. And as a result, that person or that offender remains unarrested, free to walk the streets as he will. And I felt like that was very unfair to the family of the victim, especially when there was substantial evidence, what I felt like would have been beyond a reasonable doubt to prove that that person committed the crime and should be arrested. But one thing I realized is that politics play a role in everything. I didn't know this initially when I first joined the force, but now when I look back, it's all about politics. I think a lot of times these state's attorneys, they worry about losing. So a lot of times they refuse to prosecute, thinking that if they lose, it affects their chances of being reelected. So they rather reject the case or not pursue a case instead of taking a chance at putting the offender in jail for something that they committed, they rather think about themselves and not prosecute in hopes of being reelected. One thing I realized about statistics is statistics sometimes can be manipulated to prove what you're trying to prove. So I'll give you an example. If we were to compare crime in 2021 to 2022, maybe crime has gone up. But if you compare January 2021 to January 2022, hypothetically speaking, it may show a decrease in crime for that month of January. Nobody can run with that statistic and say, hey, crime has gone down, look at this comparison. That's not a representation of the overall picture. So me being firsthand and being directly involved in it, I definitely would not say crime has decreased. Maybe in certain sectors, maybe, I don't know, thefts or something like that. And that's me speaking without actually having the statistics. But as far as violent crime, it's definitely been an increase.
Can we talk a little bit about the Safety Act? Because there's been a lot of confusion around it. That people don't really know what it's going to do. So some of the things in the Safety Act are defendants under electronic monitoring who leave their home, that you cannot charge them, if they leave their home until 48 hours after they escape. And then another thing is they can't prevent police officers cannot arrest nonviolent trespassers. If you have somebody who's living in your backyard, they can write them a ticket, but I guess they can't actually arrest them as long as they're not being threatening to you. What do you think about the Safety Act as it's implemented now? I know that the no cash bail isn't going to be decided on until the spring, but without the no cash bail, how has it affected your job and the city at large?
So with the Safety Act, most officers were curious on how it's going to play out, because a lot of offenders that we've caught and put into jail for doing certain criminal acts will have the opportunity to be released. And once they get released, who knows what's going to happen from there? If they're going to take advantage of that opportunity and commit the same offense again, are they going to come out that a victim? Or are they going to flee, go to a different city, go to a different state, and do that same criminal act and affect crime statistics in that particular area? So it's a lot of doubt, fear, uncertainty of what's the goal and what's the purpose that's going to come from this Safety Act.
What do you think is the purpose? Why have this Safety Act that wants to eliminate cash bail and allow people to live in your backyard without an officer being able to arrest them?
So I do believe that their goal was to help those that are less fortunate not be tied or not be in jail for acts that they do and not have a fair share at being released. I guess, in other words, like if you're rich and you commit a criminal offense, you can just pay the bail and get out, whether you did it or not, whether they know for sure you did it or not. But a lot of unfortunate individuals, if they don't have bail, they have to sit in jail. So I understand that sector of it, but I think they added a lot more to it that should have been not included. So if you're a violent offender, the judge release you on home monitoring, things like that. I think that's crossing the line, because now you're putting people's peace of mind at risk. One thing knowing, hey, you committed a violent act, you're behind bars, I can live without looking over my shoulder. But it's another thing knowing that you did these things, knowing that you harmed these people, or if I'm the victim, you caused this to my family, you shot at our world, and the judge says, hey, you're free to go home on electronic monitoring. Now, we don't know what that person's offender's intentions are. So it's going to make a lot of citizens within the city uneasy, and it's going to be a threat to their peace.
J.B. Pritzker recently passed a law that's banning semi-automatic weapons possession and sale in the entire state. Do you think that's going to help with the crime?
I do not think that's going to be beneficial whatsoever. If anything, it's going to help the criminals, because the criminals are the ones that are getting these high capacity magazines and AR-15s and using it to do destruction. But if you disarm those law-abiding citizens, when they come and do that same destruction, who's going to stop them? We got to wait for another officer or call an agency for them to get involved versus a citizen stepping in at that moment and neutralizing the threat. So if anything, this is more harmful to law-abiding citizens, and it's a threat to everyone's Second Amendment. Just like how they have the concealed carry, I think they should have open carry, but they should have a course to educate everyone on the uses and the laws in regards to it. Because I believe if there's open carry, more people will think twice before they do a criminal act. Oh man, he got a big gun on his waist. I'm gonna think twice before I try to rob him. Or everybody over here has a gun. I'm gonna think twice before I try to harm this person because this person may harm me. So I think if there's open carry, it would actually deter a lot of criminal acts from happening. But I think sometimes our politicians get so set in their ways that they limit us from a lot of our freedoms, or they limit us from being able to protect ourselves out of fear. They make us believe that we're helping ourselves by giving up our liberties, when actually we're damaging ourselves and giving more power over to the criminals that are causing a lot of these things in the first place.
Something that I think about is how do they keep winning re-elections? As I kind of asked you about it before with Kim Foxx, with Pritzker, if it's not safe, how do they keep winning?
I think they are winning because a lot of our grandparents, great-grandparents, etc. were taught, growing up in for example, my household, I was taught to vote Democrat, or I was taught to vote a certain way without even knowing who the candidates are. So a lot of times I feel like we are, I want to say the word brainwashed, but we are misguided on who to actually vote for. We may vote out of fear of the unknown of a new candidate, or we just vote because, hey, this is how grandma voted, this is how mom voted, this is how I'm gonna vote. A lot of times people don't really know what comes with the current candidate that they're voting for until things go wrong.
The Democrat Party of your grandmother is not the Democrat Party that it is today.
Absolutely, but a lot of us, we're not into politics to even know that. All we know is what we have at that moment, what we can get, or what we may lose if another party may get involved. So I don't think we know the full spectrum of the pros and cons of each candidate. And I think as a result, we just continue going down this rabbit hole unaware, and we listen to the candidates blame something else as the reason for things going on that we believe in.
Have you ever had a situation where you put someone, you arrested them, you brought them to the station, and then suddenly you see them back on the streets?
Yes, I've seen juveniles get arrested juveniles, and they are out back on the streets before I'm able to finish paperwork sometimes. And that's no joke. Like, they are on the street before you call a the juvenile officer. They look over their rap sheet or their criminal history, and they decide based off their criminal history and the act that they committed at the time if they'll go over to the juvenile center or if they'll be released at that moment to their parents.
So a lot of the arguments is they're kids, they have second chances, third chances, fourth chances. We want them to rehabilitate instead of just putting them behind bars. What do you think is the right balance to strike with how to deal with juveniles who are repeat offenders? That's
a good question. I think we should have a proactive response instead of a reactive response. Right now, we're waiting until juveniles do something wrong, and then we're trying to offer them a solution in order to prevent them from doing it again. But I think if we go into some of these communities, if we actually sit down and talk to them, hey, why did you commit this crime? Why did you do this? And get a better understanding of why people are doing what they're doing. And we try to handle or provide resources to those areas where they lack. I think that would deter them from committing crime. So I think it should be a proactive response in order to figure out what they're dealing with on a daily basis and help them there before they even get the chance to commit a crime or do something wrong. So I don't think we should start with people that are offenders. I think we should go into the communities because a lot of our young kids, they get sidetracked, and they get sidetracked from people that they look up to. Sometimes they look up to good people, sometimes they look up to bad people. But we need to get in contact with those children at those vulnerable ages before they look up to the person that may be committing crime, that may be showing them the love that they need. But if we reach them at that young age, I feel like we can have an effect on not only their lives, but just crime in the city. The guys you probably interviewed today, about 20 years ago, it probably would have been me. So I got a different perspective. I've seen both ends of the fence. So this was me when I was 13.
Wow.
I have the no rats, stop snitching, don't watch me, hood rules apply, And a lot of that applies to the neighborhood that I'm from. So fortunately for me, I was able to be a part of like the local YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs within the community. And when I got into those Boys and Girls Clubs, they had activities. They had people come teach us, for example, how to build a resume, how to dress for an interview, things that I wouldn't normally get on a regular day basis. And by me constantly coming and learning some of those activities, it was teaching me things for the future that I didn't realize that I was going to use later. So eventually my attitude, my behavior, just the way I looked at life started to different. I stopped being a follower and became a leader, because now I was starting to see what the consequences may be for some of my actions versus previously just doing whatever my friends did. So ultimately it changed my behavior. I started to realize which one of my friends have the same mindset, which ones don't. Separate myself from those that don't. Continue to want with my friendship with those that do. Grades started to change. Scholarships started to come my way. Schools wanted me. Went to college, and just from having that resource in my neighborhood and having people come and feed into that resource played a key role in me changing my whole life. That's why I really stress having the resources in the community, because without those, it's just gonna be a cycle of people just doing what they think is best. So, and one thing I can say about being from certain neighborhoods, people got their own rules. Just like we enforce the law, it's laws in that community. And sometimes the laws are different from the laws that we enforce. We may do something, come and enforce something. They say, hey man, why are you taking him to jail for that? He ain't do nothing. He only did this. And it's viewed differently than what the state of Illinois says can be done or can't be done in regards to certain situations. So I think it's a variety of programs that are out to teach children. For example, there's a law in the community class course that departments teach, where they go into the community and into the schools, into the YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, and they teach kids the law. They teach them what a theft is, teach them what a robbery is. And we read how to make a bill. What's the process of a bill getting approved in order to become a law? And after learning these things, we provide scenarios, real life-based scenarios. And the person that's participating, the kid, have to articulate if a crime has been committed, if it has, what crime, and what are the consequences of their action. Do you think they're going to be free to go? Do you think they could be arrested behind what they did? And a lot of times it helps the children learn, because I have kids come back years later, hey man, I remember you from the program, man, this is good. And they are on a different path, that they were differently than what they were on when they enrolled in a program. So there are successful programs that can reach our youth in order to get them on the right path. One of the main ways I think we can make Chicago safer is to change the music that our children are listening to, and try to find a way to stop a lot of these big music organizations or executives from exploiting our children to promote their own destruction. And I say that in regards to rap music, or a specific sector is drill music. So let's just say you're part of a gang, I'm a part of a gang, and we're both rapping, but we are in opposition to one another. So I rap about talking about your group, you're talking about mine, but my group comes and kills someone from your side, and then I get on a music song and I rap about it. I mock killing your loved one or your best friend or person in your gang, and then you feel a certain type of way about it. You get back on the same song or a different song, and now you rap about retaliating, coming to kill someone that means something to me, and it just goes back and forth. And a lot of these executives, they come into our low-income communities, and they say, "Oh man, this guy got 5,000 or 10,000 likes on his song. Let me give him $1 million to rap about that stuff at a bigger level, so people around the country can hear."
What do you think is the deciding factor of when someone goes down a really bad path and someone sort of makes it out in the way that you did?
It depends on their aspirations. If you're that kid that looks up to the local gang member and you want to be just like them, you're gonna follow that path that person is following, whether that may be going to jail here and there, or may ultimately be death. But if you're that other person that, okay, you see that person has nice things, you aspire to be or to aspire to have what they have. However, you're not taking the route that they're taking to get what they're getting. So I think that's the difference, having a different mindset, but also take advantage of the opportunities that are coming your way. Because a lot of times people in the same communities, they have the same opportunities. A person may not just choose to take on that opportunity that come that way, or may not even know it is an opportunity. But if you be aware of your surroundings, you ask yourself, is this going to help me or break me? Then I think that can be a deciding factor that helps steer their direction.
Talk to me about BLM and what it was like for you after the death of George Floyd as an officer.
So after the George Floyd death, it was very difficult for me as an officer. I had to look over my shoulder daily, wondering if someone's going to try to attack as a result of his death. As unfortunate as it was, it was a lot of crazy moments. You had the looting going on, you had people protesting, rioting, and I understand it. But when it comes to BLM or Black Lives Matter, one thing I realized, it means different things to different people. To the Black community, it represents our struggle. It represents every person that's of color that's been a victim to whether it's police brutality or some type of injustice from the government or the system. But to other races or ethnicities and even officers and police agencies, Black Lives Matter represents a communist founder that, is using the platform or the struggles of the Black community in order to push communist agendas and extort money to use for personal gain. So a lot of times you may have officers or you may have other individuals, when they hear Black Lives Matter, they're denouncing it, but they're denouncing it out of the wrongful acts of the founder. But when someone of color, someone like myself, or anyone else may hear that, not knowing what that founder or co-founder is doing with the money, they think you're denouncing the struggle, and it makes people mad, it makes people furious. It makes people want to be in opposition of anything that you present, because you're in opposition to what our struggles are.
In the wake of BLM, there's BLM and then there's BLM adjacent groups. You saying a cop, all cops are bastards, all cops are racist. How has that rhetoric been for you as an officer?
It That's been very difficult. I had a person that was a part of one of those groups that came to me and was yelling in my face, "Black Lives Matter." Now, this person was not even black. They was of a different race, telling me, as a person of color, Black Lives Matter. Like, I don't take this badge and this vest off at the end of my shift and go home and yeah, it was just mind-blowing that someone could think that just because I have a badge and a vest and a weapon on that I'm no longer black. But I think it's just a lot of stereotypes. They associate me with the stereotypes that come with police officers, and I get it to a degree. But I bet you, if they had saw me walking down the street without my uniform, they'd be passing out flyers to me. "Hey, can you come out to our event? We're speaking on this. We want to raise awareness for this." They'll try to recruit me to be a part of that organization. But the moment I put on a vest and gun, now I'm the enemy. So we have to ask ourselves, or they have to ask themselves, hey, is it all cops? Is it certain cops? Is it cops at all? Or is it about a lack of resources? Is it about helping the people? It has to be some type of evaluation or analysis that we need to come to together versus just judging everybody that puts uniform on. Because I've met white people that are my co-workers that went well beyond for a person that was the same color as me.
You're obviously a smart guy. You have a home and a family and a career. What keeps you in Chicago?
That's a good question. What keeps me in Chicago is I feel like I can make some type of positive influence on the community, whether it's the community that I work for or the community that I live in. I just feel like I'm built and designed by God to help others. And because our city is dealing with so much right now, I feel like although all of this negativity is going on at times, it's my place or my purpose to try to help it get as best as I can. So whether that's, like I said, talking to a young juvenile or talking to a person or talking to an adult about, not doing something or going a different route. It's times on calls where a person was gonna harm themselves, commit suicide, and if I wasn't there, they possibly may not be here today. So I like to think that God has put me here to help others. It may be somebody that I might deal with under a suicide 5 years from now. I don't know, but I think God put me in place to help people